Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Jason, Ultimate Crossover Inman.
I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
But you already know this because Geek History Lesson, we are the podcast where we break down one thing of pop culture in a little bit of an hour. And this time, we're going to track down a concept of comic books. What are we talking about today, Ashley?
Today we are talking about the ultimate crossovers.
Yes, that's right. In honor of the 4-part crossover on Arrow, Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl, we're going to dive deep and we're going to talk about what we think are our favorite comic book crossovers. But first, before we cross over, we're going to have a crossover with a cool comic book creator with a special message. You know him as the writer of such comics as Manhunter, Batwoman, Wonder Woman 77, and The Death of Hawkman, and more. So we're going to welcome to the podcast writer Marc Andreyko. Thanks for joining us on Geek History Lesson.
My pleasure. Nice to see you guys again.
Yeah, lovely to see you. So tell us, what is your favorite comic book event or crossover and why?
Well, we've been spoiled over the past 2 decades from things like Crisis and Secret Wars and the big earth-changing events. But my favorite, probably the biggest one when I was a kid, when they were fewer and further between, was the Uncanny X-Men New Teen Titans.
Oh, that one's so good.
Which was written by Marv Wolfman and Chris Claremont and drawn by Walt Simonson and inked by Terry Austin. And it was just amazing.
Like the ultimate teams of the team books of the 80s.
Oh, yeah, they were the A-list teams. That was the fact that what could even remotely happen back then was world-ending. It was just like, oh my God, they're going to cross over these two teams, and it was a big, I think it was a 64-page or even a 72-page.
And they were the best-selling books of both companies at the time too.
Yeah, huge best-selling books. Yeah, I mean that was how I became a DC reader. I had been grown up a Marvel kid, and I picked up the first issue of Teen Titans. I picked up was issue 4 because it had the Teen Titans versus the Justice League. And when you're a little kid, you like count the characters. You're like, oh, it's worth more if there's more characters in it.
Right, exactly.
And those two books complemented each other very well. They were both books about teams and family and the
angst
and the metaphor, and stuff actually happened. The characters actually grew and changed over those things. But one of my favorite moments that I remember in the X-Men Teen Titans crossover was Changeling, who's now called Beast Boy, and Wolverine were off investigating because it was Darkseid and Dark Phoenix were the villains. Come on. And,
how could you not?
and Changeling, whose real name is Gar Logan, looked at Wolverine and said, "Your name's Logan? My name's Logan too. Maybe we're related." And if you look at the body hair on both of them, they probably could have been if they were in the same universe.
You believe it, yeah.
You believe it, yeah.
Was there anything about, you said there was that crossover made it feel special at the time because they were like the two biggest books, they were both around. Do you think that's like an important factor about crossovers or comic book events, that they have to feel special?
Yeah, I think they do. I think because it's like the example I use is like it's movies today. When you go see a Transformers movie, it's like watching a video game. The reason superheroes resonate with people, the reason Spider-Man is so popular isn't because he's fighting the Green Goblin. It's because he's late for school, he's got the flu, he lost his job, and they're going to get evicted. And all the fighting stuff is second unit, so you have to care about who these characters are. The fighting stuff writes itself and does itself. And when these events, when there's an event every 6 months, nothing is special because everything is big.
Yeah.
When it's once every couple of years, it's why I think Rebirth has resonated so well with people, because Rebirth is just about storytelling. Now, Jeff is going to revisit the Watchmen stuff in a year and a half from now or whatever, but these books are all about telling character-driven stories and investing in them, and they're not about big, life-changing events, because if every 6 months the world changes, nothing changes. It just becomes white noise.
Yeah, everything that came out of Rebirth is significant, as opposed to everything just goes back to status quo.
Yeah, and I think we're going to see more of that. We're at a place now where geek culture has permeated the quote unquote real world so much that people know these characters, so we don't have to constantly be retelling their origins and stuff. We just have to be telling good stories about them, and we can drop people into the middle of the stories because the mythology is now a shared mythology on a level that I never thought I would see in my lifetime.
On Off Mic, you mentioned as well, you talked about a Superman-Spider-Man crossover.
Yes, not the first one. The first one is great, but for me, the second one was even better because the second one was John Buscema drawing it and Joe Sinnott inking it, and it was Spider-Man and Superman, obviously, and Hulk and Wonder Woman appear in it, and it was
the best supporting characters.
Yeah, and it was Doctor Doom and the Parasite. And it was just beautiful. And it was the big treasury size at the time. And the cover was, I think, painted. It looked like it was drawn by John Buscema, and I think maybe like a Bob Larkin or someone like that, one of the painter guys.
That's not the classic cover one where you see like the telephone pole.
No, that's the first one. That one is
okay.
That one is Ross Andrew and John and Dick Giordano. I think did that. That's a pen and ink one. This one is like a pastel painted cover. It's got Superman and Spider-Man. The background is orange, and you have the Parasite and Doctor Doom. And I remember loving Dr. Doom was being chased by Superman in New York, and he runs into the Latvian embassy, and Superman can't do anything to get him. And it was like so cool that they put in real world politics in there.
And you were involved in a little crossover known as Love is Love. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Love is Love is a big multiverse crossover, a real multiverse crossover. It's a book after the Orlando, the massacre at the Pulse nightclub in June of this year. I'm a child of We Are the World and Comic Relief and all that stuff. So if you have a skill set in the arts, do something with your friends, because it's a way to channel your own grief and fear and confusion, but it also it's therapeutic for you as an artist. And it's also a way to, instead of just giving money to something, the people that donate or have a piece to share. So Love is Love is a 144-page graphic novel anthology with 138 different stories. There's a couple 2-pagers in there with some of the biggest names in comics, film, television, novels, theater. It's just insane, and it's being published by IDW and DC Comics. And it's absolutely crazy. It'll be out December 21st. I highly recommend you order it.
Just in a couple of weeks.
Just in a couple of weeks, yeah. I highly recommend you can order it directly from IDW Publishing on their website. You can order it from Amazon. Call your local retailer and order it. It's $10 for 144 pages. Some of the names in it: Grant Morrison, Brian Bendis, Mark Millar, Matt Bomer, Damon Lindelof, Patton Oswalt, Brandon Peterson.
Was there a page that surprised you, or just really impacted you the most of some of the names you said, or even a name we haven't heard yet?
Well, even some of the ones that really, really hit me the hardest weren't the big names. Mm-hmm. Like my roommate Dan is a writer and a director and a big comic fan. And I asked him if he wanted to write a piece, and his piece. When it got turned in, both the editors, Jamie Rich, who's the executive editor at Vertigo, and Sarah Gatos, who handles all the Hasbro stuff at IDW, volunteered their services to edit this book in addition to the 9 books they get paid to edit. And they both commented, wow, that piece was really powerful. So there's the pride of my roommate writing a really good piece, and David LaFuente of Archer and Armstrong fame drew it.
Nice.
And it's just a really beautiful, profound piece called Hand Me Down. I don't want to give anything away, but it's a really lovely piece that, particularly for straight guys who've read it, it really hit them hard. They really are like, oh, and I just want to do a book that that's going to make people think and is going to generate some money for. And what's great about this book, by the way, is everything was donated free: paper, press, printing, all the services. So every penny from every sale is going directly to victims and survivors and people that need aftercare for Orlando. And the aftercare isn't just funerals and hospital bills. There's psychiatric care. There's things that, heartbreaking things like helping buy cemetery gravestones for people who lost their kids. So it's really the long-term care. And but it's just a really powerful piece. It's a piece that transcends just Orlando. I mean, after the election we just had, the book is even more relevant than ever. There are Orlando specific pieces, but it's a really powerful book. And we were lucky. We had, DC let us use DC characters. Archie let us use their characters. The Will Eisner estate, Matt Wagner wrote a Spirit piece.
Oh, wow.
Marvel and Valiant we didn't get to use their characters, but they let us use their exclusive talent.
That's great.
They let people like Brian Bendis and Jason Aaron, and Olivier Copiel come and contribute. And so it's been really gratifying. And the world is so divided right now in so many ways that to have DC and IDW both came to me after I came up with the idea.
Crossover.
And said, crossover. They said we want to publish this. So it's been a big undertaking dealing. I now apologize to every editor I've ever worked with because I now know what they go through. It's like herding cats ice skating uphill while on meth and an avalanche is happening. But everybody's really come together, and the caliber of people that said I want to be a part of this has been overwhelming. And because we had to lock down a format before everybody turned everything in, we're going to have, I think, about 30 pages of exclusive content that will be on the digital version of it. And there's some big names in there too that are going to be digital only, just because with everyone's schedules and everyone, even though I only ask people to do 1 or 2 pages, everyone's busy. And everyone really, even if they came in a little late, they're still valuable, and they're still going to be shown. And having cool people that are digital only means you should buy both the print version and the digital version.
And this is definitely a book you should pick up, everyone out there, because if you all remember the giant, massive team up books after 9/11, like those books have some amazing artwork and some amazing stories and some powerful stories in there that you can't get. Like that book is hard to find now.
Yeah.
And this will be the same thing. Like this is a powerful book, and this will be a book that'll be hard to find a year from now.
I'm calling it now. It's going to sell out. Because there's some people that
even you can't say
that I even can't talk about that were generous in allowing use of characters or people who have contributed to the book, and we're going to be doing a ton of big press. This is going to get a lot of real world coverage. I mean, I just showed you guys we're in Oprah Magazine's Christmas issue, her favorite things.
Yeah.
Oprah covered it as the most awesome thing of the month. The Guardian in London, New York Times. I mean, it was one of the most retweeted stories in the New York Times website the day it was announced. And you too contributed a piece.
We were going to say that for last, because we were going to say as an extra bonus Geek History Lesson listeners, we reached out to Mark as well, and we were like, can we do a page, please? And Mark was gracious enough to be like, oh, sure, you podcasters, you can do this.
That's not true. No, that's not true. I wasn't slumming. I was really glad I wanted this book to have a diverse background of people. We have gay creators, straight creators, bi creators, trans creators, men, women, all races. We have people from European artists, South American artists, Australian artists. It's been a really big global thing. And one other thing, in MegaCon in Orlando in May, which I think is Memorial Day weekend in 2017, we're working out plans now to do a live auction of all the original art. We're going to have a showing.
Oh, that's awesome.
So make a list of the pieces you like.
Yeah, and it's going to be a live auction that we'll do. You don't have to be in Orlando. It'll be over the internet. We're working out the details of that now. May is a little ways away, so we've got some time, but we're hopefully going to have anywhere from 70 to 90 of the contributors to the piece show up at the con. And the night before, we're planning on doing an art show of all the artwork and inviting the families and the survivors of the tragedy to come see it. And then we're going to do a live auction. And some of the pieces, I think we're going to generate a lot of money, because there's a couple of pieces in particular that I know I'm vague booking.
Are you think so? I'm curious. Are there some pages in the book that you want to purchase them yourself?
I would love to, but I would gladly not get them. I would gladly have them sell for more money.
Yes,
because I'm not going to ask, can I get this at a discount? No, there are pieces that I would love to buy. Yeah. But those are the pieces that I think can generate a real ton of money. And as you had mentioned with the 9/11 book, these books don't stay in print.
No.
These books are kind of one and done because of the time period and because of what the different companies are allowing with their characters. This isn't going to be something that's going to be in print forever. So it's really absolutely worth the $10 just for the content and the caliber. It's a who's who of comics. I've joked that the only person who's in comics who hasn't done anything for it is Jack Kirby, and my Ouija board's talking to his manager right now.
He's working out the details.
So yeah, and it's something that now that it's gone to press, I had a real sort of cathartic cry, a cleansing cry afterwards, because when you're working on something with this many moving parts, it's a lot of work. And then when you're working on something that's this emotional, it's a lot of work. And when you're done, you're kind of like, wow, we did this. I'm kind of allowing myself to take pride in the fact that the comics community and my two editors and the publishers and everybody who contributed really. We did good, and we need to own that. And it's something that it's coming out right before Christmas. It'll make a great gift. It's not for little kids. There's no graphic violence or nudity. There's some little off-color language, but it's more tonal, some of the pieces, because it's dealing with a really horrible event. But it is something that your kids, if they're over the age of 10 or 11, can read. And every single piece just the emotion just comes off the page. It's something that I joked that we should sell boxes of licensed Kleenex with the book, because it's a really
that's kind of a brilliant idea.
It's a really do like the old Spider-Man toilet paper. Do print pages on Kleenex, so after you read them you can cry. But it's been really gratifying. It's kind of funny looking back now that something that I just kind of put up the day after the massacre on Facebook as an idea. In 5 months we've created this book.
But I think that's the power of this book, and I think everyone out there, that's why you don't want to miss it. It comes out on what date again?
December 21st.
And you can order it on Amazon. You can get it on Comixology. Go to your local comic book shop and beg them to get this book for you, because you definitely want to read this. And Mark, if they want to follow any other stuff that you do or more updates on Love is Love, where can they do that on the
Facebook. And Twitter. I'm the only Marc Andreyko on Facebook and the only Marc Andreyko on Twitter that I know of. I don't know if I have any doppelgangers out there. And I don't know anybody. I don't think anybody really wants to pretend to be me. You should, and if you do, aim higher. But yeah, I can't stress enough. This isn't just hyperbole. I can't stress enough. Order the book now, whether it's through IDW, Amazon, or letting your local retailer know, because when it's gone, it's going to be gone, and it's going to be something that people will revisit. Because, like I said, there are some very moving Orlando-specific pieces in the book, but there are also pieces. It's love is love. It's about it doesn't matter who you love, just love somebody.
And it could be considered, what I'm going to say, a lovely crossover.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, it is. There's a lot of people, a lot of creators working on this that have never been under the same umbrella, the same publisher before. So it's a really great thing for the holidays, and it's a really great way to memorialize the people whose lives were lost, the people whose lives were changed forever. And it's just a really beautiful piece that I couldn't be prouder to be a part of.
Well, you should be proud of it. It looks like an amazing book, and I can't wait to read it. Thanks for joining us on Geek History Lesson, Marc.
My pleasure. Happy holidays, everybody.
And I think that was an awesome conversation we just had with Marc Andreyko. Don't you think, Ashley?
I think we were so lucky to have him.
But we're not done with crossovers just yet. We have another cameo, another crossover. Here to help us go over our list of comic book crossovers is DJ Woolridge from SourceFed Nerd and the Only Stupid Answers podcast. Welcome, DJ.
That's me. I am him.
You are crossed over.
And I am here right now.
You are crossed over with us for the first time.
Uh-huh.
I love that. Do you love that little blurb on comic book covers where they're like, they're meeting again for the first time?
What does that even mean?
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It means this is the first time that matters.
Yeah, exactly. It means we couldn't go back and look to see the last time they teamed up. So it doesn't matter anymore.
It's also no such thing as continuity, so whatever.
It doesn't matter.
They retconned everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so we are going to talk about, each of us made a list of what we think are the 5 best crossovers, comic book events are included, of course. Now, we did this a little bit of what we thought was best, but mostly it's like personal, what we personally think were the best events. The only rules we had for this is that everybody had to include one Marvel and one DC. Now, we didn't do an independent rule because there actually aren't that many independent comic book crossovers.
Wasn't there a big Image one with either Invincible or Savage Dragon, where like Savage Dragon, Invincible, and Spawn?
They did.
Savage Dragon crosses over with everybody.
And then the Sonic Comics had a crossover with Image Comics, which makes zero sense.
What? That's amazing. Yeah. But it's like Archie crossover with Punisher.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
And Predator.
And Predator.
Recently.
And he was also assassinated, and there's also zombies. They're having fun over there at the Archie Empire.
Yes.
Yeah,
oh my God. Archie's everything right now.
They're killing it right now. They're totally killing it. Okay, so let's start with our list. We're going to start from 5. We're going to go all the way down to 1, and we're going to talk about them a little bit. DJ, you're the guest.
Oh, no.
But we're actually going to start with the amazing lady first.
Thank you.
Miss Ashley, would you start off with your number 5 crossover comic book event?
So my number 5 crossover is Spider-Verse from 2014. And kind of what happens is Moreland escapes from the realm of the dead, having been trapped there by Black Panther. And every Spider-Man in the entire multiverse has to get together to defeat the only villain Spider-Man himself has never defeated. Now, you're going to learn through this list that my preferences in events and crossovers are line-wide. I don't really like when we expand beyond a single family. I think that those are silly and contrived a lot of the times, although I do have one of those on there. So this is a big Spider-Man family event. What I like best about it is you get a chance to highlight a lot of the more obscure characters. Like Spider-Man India is really cool, and who knew that? And then
Spider-Ham.
And Spider-Ham.
And also the Spider-Man from the 60s animated series.
Yes.
I think the only one they didn't get was Andrew Garfield.
Yes.
They couldn't license Andrew Garfield's specific Spider-Man.
And Tobey Maguire.
And Tobey Maguire,
which they make references to.
Oh, shucks.
Yeah.
But the other best thing about the Spider-Verse event is that it introduces Silk and Spider-Gwen, who are now 2 of my favorite staples of the Marvel Universe and 2 of the series that I read every month. So I really appreciate it for that. And I think that there's just enough tying this together to get you past the spider gobbledygook and then the comic bookiness of it all. Like the idea of the totems and that Moreland is hunting them down, I think it's a good premise. I mean, Dan Slott is one of the greatest Spider-Man writers of all time.
Because essentially this is just like an excuse to have every alternate Spider-Man ever team up.
Completely.
Did this change your opinion on Moreland?
It did, because before this I thought Moreland was really dumb.
Yeah,
me too.
Moreland was the classic, we need to create a villain to kill our hero.
Yeah.
That's
Michael
the reason
Straczynski. J. Michael Straczynski created them,
Well, you know.
Yeah.
And then didn't we get Spider-Man getting Wolverine? They weren't Wolverine claws, but they were talon.
There was a
Yes,
Spider-Man
they were-
Wolverine. Yeah.
Yeah, they're supposed to be like poison tipped or whatever, like
Yeah.
a tarantula, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, this takes Moreland and it makes him a really credible threat, which is nice
Yeah.
when you can take something silly and then legitimize it for a modern audience.
Yeah.
All right, it's a good choice.
Thank you.
DJ, what is your number 5?
Okay, so I don't know if this is a good crossover, but it's a crossover that meant something to me.
That's what matters.
And most of my crossovers were more modern. And so I wanted to have one that was back in like the heyday of the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is Blood Ties, which was an Avengers X-Men crossover back in the day. And it involves a Magneto's granddaughter being kidnapped, the daughter of Quicksilver.
And Quicksilver and Crystal.
Yeah.
Is her name Luna?
Yeah, it is Luna.
Yeah,
Good job. I did not know. I had to look it up.
Inhumans, deep cut right there.
Here's what I remember most about this. I remember the foil covers.
Okay.
And I remember how cool it was seeing the Avengers and the X-Men hang out.
Did you buy like the lenticular?
Yeah.
covers?
Listen, I was a kid. I was all about it. I was the target audience. Like, I am the reason the comic industry crashed in the 90s because I was buying all of that stuff. So yeah, it was.
Send your tweets to at DJ
you're
Talks
welcome.
Trash.
Thank you. And kind of the villain of it is kind of Exodus because he's trying to kill both the guy that kidnapped Luna and Luna.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so it's one of those that, and I didn't put it on my list, but it almost was on there. Was the Clone Saga with Ben Reilly? Just not because it was any good, because it meant something to me. It was when I was first getting into comics as a kid.
Here's my question to you. Do you like Exodus? Because in the 90s, he was sort of Magneto's lackey.
Yeah.
And he's very much a 90s villain.
Yeah, with the mullet and the whole
Yeah,
thing.
mullet.
I don't
When
even know
was
if I
even
could
the
tell
last
you
time
what-
he appeared?
I don't know. I bring him back though because I liked him because
I don't even know what his powers are.
I don't even know what his powers are, and this is on my list.
Marvel can call DJ at any time to write the Exodus standalone.
Here's what will be interesting is it's kind of like. Did you guys watch the new 310 to Yuma?
Yes.
You know how Russell Crowe's not really the bad guy in that? It's his sidekick that's the bad
Yeah.
guy?
Yeah.
That's Exodus to me.
Oh,
You know,
interesting.
also, the X-Men 2 video game that I played on Sega Genesis, it was probably on other systems. And one of the big draws is you could play Magneto. It was really cool. One of the bad guys in it is
Exodus.
Yeah. So I think there's something, especially as they've tried to make Magneto less of a straight up bad guy.
Well, when you cast
Bring
Ian
Exodus
McKellen,
back.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
what are
gotta.
you gonna do? And right now he's on Uncanny X-Men, right?
Exodus?
Yeah, no, Magneto.
Magneto leads the Uncanny X-Men.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it's like bring Exodus back, man. It's a good time to.
Yeah.
Is he even alive?
Who knows?
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe.
bring his mullet back.
So did you love this event as a tiny human being because it was like the first time you saw
It was-
X-Men and Avengers
I'm gonna
come
be-
together?
I'm going to be honest with you. It's probably my first event.
Nice.
Yeah, it was probably my first
Okay.
exposure
That's
to
so
the idea
precious.
of like groups of heroes coming together.
It's the idea that they expanded the universe could expand, like which is something the event that's not on my list, Death of Superman, did for me, where I was like, oh man, there's a lot of heroes in the DC universe besides Batman and Superman.
Yeah,
and they're all friends.
all buddies.
They all go to funerals together. Are there any moments that you remember specifically from this? Like, was there an X-Man that had an interesting reaction to an Avenger or anything like that?
I don't remember that. I remember the cool covers. I remember the really cool covers.
The covers are shiny. Yeah,
Any
you
90s
are
kids are with me.
You are responsible for the death of the comics.
I didn't know. In fact, I think it was my. This was one of those that my dad was buying for me. And so
Okay.
they were just buying
That's
all
good
the ones
parenting.
with
Yep.
that little like blood ties tag on the front. That was back when the Avengers were all wearing those leather jackets with the A on them.
Yes.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Avengers
The
West
90s.
Coast was a part of it.
Oh man.
All right, Jason, what do you have at your number 5?
My number 5 is a 1994 event called 0 Hour.
I'm glad you put this
Yep.
on your list.
Now, this is an event that doesn't give enough credit, but this is the former hero Hal Jordan, who's now Parallax. He's gone crazy from the destruction of Coast City, and he's obtained immense power as Parallax, and he's attempted to destroy and then remake the DC universe to fit his will. This is a crossover that went across every DC Universe monthly series. And fun fact, this is a unique comic book miniseries event because it was published in reverse order. So it starts
I
with
didn't know that.
It starts with issue number 4 and it counts down to 0 because
Nice.
there's 4 issues. Also, the main event, 4 issues. This event was only 4 months long.
I missed that, man.
Yeah. The series was written and penciled by Dan Jurgens, and then also when it hit 0, every single DC title got a 0 issue.
That's cool.
Which was really
before
cool.
Because that was before that was a thing.
And shiny silver covers.
Yeah, I got that. You know my love for the shiny covers. I have Kyle Rayner's Green Lantern 0 issue.
Yes, one of the I do too, and one of the best moments of my life, I got Ron Mars to sign it for me.
That's amazing.
But the reason why I had to put this on there over some other DC events is that this is an event full of so many great character moments and character changes. This is the event that launched the ongoing James Robinson Starman story. Nice. This was the event that rebooted the Legion for the very first time under Mark Waid. It became the Archie Legion.
And little did you know it would happen 6 times right after that.
Yeah, that's right. This is also the series that featured the death of several members of the Justice Society of America. And this also had like an amazing character moment. You brought up the Kyle Rayner, where Kyle Rayner in Green Lantern Zero, which I think is one of the best issues of Green Lantern ever. Mm-hmm. Kyle has to decide to blow up Oa, which is the only way he can beat Parallax because Parallax is so powerful. Also, Oliver Queen has a great moment in this where he decides that he has to kill Hal Jordan, and he knocks an arrow right into his chest. Now, he doesn't know that, of course, it didn't kill him, but it's the idea of the matter that Oliver Queen was like, I just bullseyed my friend in the heart and killed him. But this, a lot of people think that Infinite Crisis is the sequel to Crisis on Infinite Earths. No, it's 0 Hour, because 0 Hour was about 10 years later, and it was them trying to attempt to fix Crisis on Infinite Earths like weirdo mistakes.
Don't we have the Hawk family to blame for this? Because they rebooted everybody, and they couldn't figure out what to do with the Hawks.
Hawkman got a reboot in this too.
They screwed up the Hawkman timeline even worse. You're like, man, how are we going to fix this? And then 0 Hour happened to kind of fix that. And
0 Hour made Hawkman a Hawk god.
Yeah,
and then you were just like, oh, you don't know what you're... Because at the time, Hawkman was the space cop Hawkman.
Yep.
And then they
were like, wait, we have Green Lanterns though.
Well, yeah. And then they were also like, well, but we also have like JSA Hawkman. Mm-hmm. Like, how does that work? But 0 Hour to me was also really cool because I can remember I was reading like Batman and Superman at the time, and all the ancillary tie-ins were awesome because it was the current characters 10 years after Crisis on Infinite Earths interacting with their Golden Age selves.
Yeah.
So like modern mullet Superman met like Golden Age Batman.
I have a comic. I had a comic. I don't know if I still have it. I'd like to think it's somewhere of Batman surrounded by all like you got,
I have
like
that
Frank
comic
Miller's
too.
Batman.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one of my fondest memories of 0 Hour.
And then also it has one of the best issues of Robin ever because it has Tim Drake Robin meeting Golden Age Dick Grayson.
It's so good.
And it's written by Chuck Dixon. It's one of the best Robin issues of all time. So that's my number 5. 0 Hour definitely deserves to be in these top 5s.
Nice, for sure.
Yep. All right, Ashley, what is your number 4?
Well, since you guys weren't going to put an independent event on yours, I took it upon myself to put an Image Comic event on mine. At number 4, I have the Revival Chew crossover from 2014.
Nice.
This was a 2-issue crossover. There was one that was more Chew heavy. There's one that's more Revival heavy. And the basic synopsis is that the creators met at a convention and said this would be fun, and somehow Image agreed to it. Tony Chu...
Didn't they table next to each other? Is that how they did it?
Yeah. But I suspect it happened over dinner and drinks.
Yes.
Tony Chu heads to Wisconsin, to Wausau, where this is all happening, in 2 all-new original tales by the creative teams behind both critically acclaimed titles. And that's the best description ever because they're basically standalone things that have nothing to do with continuity. Tony Chu shows up, and Dana and Em are like, what are you doing here? And they're like, I don't know, we have a chicken. And then they fight some zombies.
I don't know, we have a chicken. That's the greatest tagline for an event.
They do have a cool chicken.
But it's funny because in the revival book, there's no Poyo because he's too far out of the realm of like how Revival tells their stories.
Oh.
Revival's very grounded in like reality and science, and it flirts with the idea of like a mythology. But in the Chew issue, which is drawn in like that Rob Guillory style, Poyo is like the person in charge of their mission and what they're undertaking.
Fantastic.
And it's like really graphic and really violent. And I love it because they're 2 very different books, but because everyone wanted it to work, they managed to tell stories and take the other books' characters as ancillary characters, and they're really fun one-shots. There's no reason for this to exist.
And they are, and are both these one-shots, are they out of continuity for the Revival ongoing storyline and the Chew ongoing storyline?
Completely, yeah.
Okay, cool.
But if you pick up whatever trade was publishing that storyline at the time, they're in there in the back.
Oh, that's cool. I really
both
like
of them
Chew
for
a
like
lot.
no reason.
Yeah. I really like Chew a lot, and I remember when I heard about this crossover at the time, I was like, how are they going to make this work? But I do love a crossover, especially like this is something that I think more independent comics need to do. Like Savage Dragon does this a lot because Eric Larson loves to draw other characters. Like, and most of the time he does that. Like Invincible shows up in Savage Dragon just because he wanted to draw Invincible. Yeah. And I would love to see more independent creators like crossover. Like I would love to see like somehow Tim 21 shows up in the Saga universe from Descender. Like the Descender robot shows up into Saga. Or I would just think that would be so cool. Or even like I would love it if even like it's crazy, like Chris, the sheriff of Babylon from Vertigo, somehow meets Morpheus when he's sleeping.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like I think with the way Image does its crossovers is there really isn't like when there was that big epic one where Savage Dragon, Invincible, and Spawn and all the rest of them.
Yeah, it was the Image United that never finished.
Yeah, and it's also they don't really care. Like, do all these characters exist in the same universe? Whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter.
It feels like a real throwback to like what annuals used to be for DC Comics, where it was like, we're just going to tell this story because it's fun and crazy, and we want everyone to hang out. And it's interesting because Image you think of as being one of the more like forward-thinking modern publishers, but they're doing this really old school thing, and it really works.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. It's cool with that because it's not superhero related at all.
Nope.
Yep.
Just a lot of dead people.
Probably the only non-superhero related crossover we're going to have
in
all of our lists. So well done. Ashley set the bar so high that me and DJ can never reach it.
No, there we go.
Well, I'm pretty short. You can reach it.
DJ, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Forever Evil, which is a more recent one, New 52 crossover, and it's where all the heroes are off the planet. And evil Justice League has taken over the DC universe.
The crime syndicate.
Yeah, and it's up to the bad guys to save the day. And I thought it was really cool, and it was a really great exploration of DC's best bad guys, and they have the best bad guys in comics.
Oh, for sure.
DC does.
So you have
100%.
Lex Luthor, Black Manta, Black Adam, Deathstroke. You get Batman on there because they need to sell books. Catwoman.
I mean, Batman's basically evil.
There you go. Did you guys see the new Justice League Dark animated box art where it's like Batman and these other guys?
Totally.
You gotta sell it. You
guys are killing me.
I give you mad credit because we were recently talking about, we got into a conversation about Bizarro, and I said that my second favorite Bizarro moment of all time is Forever Evil, because I love that the Bizarro clone, he puts the shirt on backwards, so it explains how he has the backwards S. And then also I love that he loves Lex Luthor like a puppy.
Yeah, their relationship is really cool, and he does a really interesting job with Lex Luthor. I'm always interested when people dive into Lex Luthor specifically. I just blanked on the writer. There was a time where Action Comics was just Lex Luthor.
It was Paul Cornell, and it was called The Black Ring.
That is one of my favorite comics.
It's a great comic. Go pick it up.
I think because I think Lex Luthor is really fascinating, and then he dive into a Forever Evil because he wants to be the good guy. He wants to be the hero. He wants to be Superman.
He just sucks at being
good. He's just really bad at it. He's worse at being a good guy. And so it's an interesting with all these villains, and Jeff Johns is the perfect guy to write this because he's the one that kind of dived into Sinestro and made him a fully fleshed character who's featured in Forever Evil. He dived into Flash's rogues and made them more. These are all people that in their story they consider themselves the good guys, and so it's an interesting exploration of when they're thrust into a situation where they have to, and the guys that they've been trying to defeat the whole time are actually the bad guys with the evil Justice League. And it's also a good example of how horrifying the Justice League would be if they were bad guys.
Now let me ask you a question here. Because you just happen to pick the crossover that does this thing that most modern crossovers do.
Yes.
Where they don't really end. They sort of like automatically set up.
They fizzle out.
They sort of fizzle out, and they sort of automatically set up the next event, which I think Forever Evil is definitely guilty of. Forever Evil immediately like sets up Darkseid War.
It does.
Now, does that detract for you, or does that is that a plus for you?
That is not a plus.
Okay.
I think I think you bring up a good point because it's as I was going through this list, a lot of these are like, wait, how did this end? Like, how did this wrap up? Like, you know how you're feeling in the middle of it. You got the setup really well. It's like, and it's because they're segueing the other thing. No, I think they should be complete stories. I think I just kind of accept that.
That's how it is now.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is now. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, let's move into
Your number 4.
my number 4 is also a DC Comics event. It is DC 1 Million.
Nice.
I almost put that on my list.
I'm glad you didn't because I wanted to steal this for myself. It's from 1998, and basically the Justice Legion Alpha of the 853rd century joins together with the present-day Justice League to battle Solaris, the Tyrant Sun. This is a miniseries by Grant Morrison and drawn by Val Meeks?
Totally.
There were 34 other series at the time being published by DC.
Wow.
And they also put out a single issue numbered 1 million, which either showed its characters' like involvement in the miniseries, or it was just a glimpse of like what this character would be like in the 853rd century. Now, if you haven't been able to tell, I like DC events where they renumber the books.
Part of this is where we were when we were reading these events.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, also, this is like the event that happened right in the middle of Grant Morrison's JLA series, which I think is like one of the greatest DC series ever published. So,
if not, it's definitely one of the best Justice League series.
yes, it and it's a crossover that when you're first reading it, you're like, I don't know what to think about this because are these future Justice Leaguers going to be evil? They're probably going to be evil, and then they turn out to not be evil, and then the real threat is Solaris, and then like you learn that the whole story is a love letter to Superman because it's all about that the original Superman has been living in the sun the entire time.
This might explain, this will mean more as we go further down the list. One of the reasons why I probably like Grant Morrison events so much is because they all kind of end up being love letters to Superman.
They do.
Yes,
They
yes.
do. Well, and that's another thing, the reason why I had to put this on my list, because it's a crossover of like really big ideas, because this crossover picks up threads from all of Grant Morrison's other storylines at the time, and it even connects to future storylines. DC 1 Million connects to All-Star Superman. DC 1 Million connects to Multiversity. DC 1 Million connects to Batman RAP. It connects to every other thing he wrote in the future, which is kind of cool since it was set in the future that like he was like, I don't know if he was so forward-thinking, but I think when he was writing these other storylines, he was like, oh, I should have a little nod back to DC 1 Million.
It's from the future.
Yeah, I think he is. And
But
also,
most importantly, Robin is a toy. Is it
Robin the Toy Wonder.
Yep.
Well, and that's another thing of this is the reason why I had to put this on the list. This is the crossover of big ideas, because like the idea that the Justice League in the future would all control a different planet, and Batman controls like Pluto, the prison planet.
Yeah.
And then also, I loved the idea that Grant Morrison actually did the math when he was like, okay, in what century would DC actually hit 1 million issues? Oh, the 853rd century.
That's ridiculous. Yeah.
So do you think that's where this all came from? Like one day on a lark, he was like, when would they reach 1 million issues? And he did that math and like,
Yes.
I want to tell this story.
I think so. I think he did do that math and was like, oh, how do you get there?
Yeah.
Because also like this is the storyline that also introduces or it really features around the Hourman, the android who is part of the JSA, part of the JLA,
The best
stuff like that.
Hourman.
I don't know if he's the best Hourman, but he's a
looks
really
really
I'm calling him the best.
the coolest looking Hourman. Okay, Ashley's calling him the best Hourman. But DC made like a really cool omnibus of this, and it collects all the 1 million issues.
You can hold a door open with it.
You can hold it. It's a heavy omnibus. But like, man, there was something about the DC 90s events, and this was definitely one of them that really just tapped that, like, this is all encompassing, that I think maybe it's because I've gotten older. I don't know. Or maybe it's because I've seen so many comic book events, but that's something I think is missing now from modern comic book events.
I agree.
So DC 1 million is my number 4. So Ashley, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is something that I chose more out of respect than out of things that I really like, because I don't think that this event has aged very well. It is 1985's one and only Crisis on Infinite Earths.
This is the event.
It is the event that started. I mean, it's not. There were events before this, but it started, what we think of as modern events.
Yeah.
So basically, the Anti-Monitor tries to destroy the DC multiverse, but succeeds only in merging it into a single universe as the publishers wanted. A bunch of characters die, most importantly, Supergirl and Barry Allen Flash. And this is immediately responsible for like the Man of Steel series and the Green Lantern Corps series.
And the Wally West Flash series.
The best of all Flash series. And Crisis on Infinite Earths is an introduction of these big ideas that we've all been talking about and that we all really love. Although it's handled in such a dated way, there are so many words on this page compared to what you'll see
and
now.
And so many characters. George Perez was going crazy with those.
Which is sort of amazing because it's like the first time when everyone just gets to come and hang out. And then like 2 years later, Invasion comes and does the same thing. But this is the first place you see it, so it's maybe not executed with the most depth or skill, but I think it deserves a lot of respect and it deserves a lot of credit. And if you're a person who is like intermediate in comics and you're looking to go back to some of the older stuff and some of the weirder stuff, I think this would be a great place to jump in. Yeah. And I think you have to respect the fact that they actually murdered characters and they stayed dead because
for a long time.
Barry Allen, was he dead for 30 years?
Almost.
Yeah, it wasn't until Final Crisis that he came back. Real talk. Do you guys think he should still be dead?
Yes.
I think so. I wish Barry Allen was still dead.
I mean, I said for years, before the Man of Steel, before there was anything of a DC cinematic universe, when there was like only Superman Returns and that really terrible Shaquille O'Neal Steel movie. Yeah. I said for years that they should make a Flash movie where it's just Wally West, or like the opening movie is that Barry Allen dies right away and Wally West is there, because like I was like, that's a story that's very unique to the Flash, and it's part of the reason why I loved Wally West so much, because the entirety of that story is him being like, I can never be as good as Barry. Like Barry saved the world.
But I think that also
the multiverse.
But that also kind of ruins Barry, because then whenever he comes back, he'll never also live up to that legacy because he's just a dude.
Yeah, and also correct me if I'm wrong, Barry Allen was pretty boring. Before he died. Like Wally West was. They've done a lot to make Barry more of a character, but before he said that classic Silver Age, like I'm
Wally
the good guy.
West,
they've made him pseudo,
especially on TV.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, the TV show. That's not really Barry Allen. That's a weird melding of Barry Allen and Wally West, because there's a lot of
Barry's a stick in the mud.
Well, yeah, Barry in the comics is he's a nerd.
He's almost like a nerd Captain America, where it's like he always does the right thing. He's always, and it's just not as
it's not as compelling.
Yeah,
no,
I wish Barry, and also the Barry Allen on the show reminds me a lot of Peter Parker too.
Yes.
He does. He also kind of looks like Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, he does.
Like
That's
with the hair and everything.
That's part of the reason.
The other thing, I'm glad you put this event on there, because this is like, I would say Crisis is almost the ultimate crossover event. Now, it's not the ultimate crossover event to my number 3, but it's almost there because there are just characters in that storyline that you just never thought would ever team up. Like John Constantine teams up with John Stewart in that book.
And it's awesome.
And you're just like, this shouldn't, no.
Yeah. They're both called John. It'll be fine.
And then like Swamp Thing teams up in this book, I think, with Supergirl. And you're just like,
what's happening?
A lot of it's like, what is happening?
I actually think Supergirl's death, even though it's like less impactful to the overall universe than Barry's death, I think it's a better story emotionally. Like where Superman is like holding her in his arms is like really arresting, and she comes back sooner, like with the weirdo Matrix Supergirl.
So strange.
Not good. Yeah. But then when she returns,
it's good if you read the original storyline. But yeah, in retrospect, it's not good.
Yeah.
If you read the original storyline.
They're just hell-bent on having Superman be the only Kryptonian.
But
they do that like every decade, though, because they introduce all these other Kryptonians, and then they're like, they're all dead.
But I think, it's interesting because Crisis on Infinite Earths, I would say for all of us sitting here on this podcast, set up the DC universe that we're the most familiar with.
The 90s, yeah.
Yes, the 90s DC universe, which I actually think is my favorite DC universe.
Mine too.
More so. And I'm one of those kids, because of John Byrne's Man of Steel. I do believe Superman should be the only Kryptonian. I don't really like it when all these other Kryptonians. It kind of ruins that he's the last son of Krypton if there are other Kryptonians out there.
I'm cool with the idea of Supergirl.
Me too.
And I'm cool with the idea of the Phantom Zone criminals, because they don't change, because it's dynamic with Supergirl and it's dynamic with them, still leaves him alone.
Yeah.
Also, if she's from Argo City and it's the Argo City that's not attached to Krypton anymore, it still makes him the last son of Krypton.
Yes, which is something that the animated series did really well. But Crisis on Infinite Earths, one thing that we needed to set up also introduced let us have the chance to see the awesome George Perez Wonder Woman series, because they were able to reboot Wonder Woman back to zero, and George Perez got to build her up, and that run is amazing.
Wonder Woman is one of the characters I think who really benefited from that.
Yes.
Like Superman and Batman, it was good how they rebooted and they led to some of their greatest series,
Batman,
but
again,
Wonder Woman was really stagnant before that.
Batman only got year 1, but honestly, Batman really didn't reboot. Like again,
that's like every time. Batman never reboots.
Yeah.
He's always fine.
He's always had 7 Robins, and we just move on.
Yeah. What's another thing too, when you come to the New 52, like it's interesting that Wonder Woman sort of survived the reboot. Like she didn't really get rebooted. She just like they retold her origin. Was like, oh, it's not what you thought it was. But like Superman, like every time gets hard.
Yeah.
And he's the one that gets the little reboots in between
Yep.
the big events too, because I'm blanking on the Mark Waid Birthright.
Birthright's great.
And
was
then
kind of a retool.
a couple years later, Secret Origins.
Secret Origins.
Also great.
Well, Superman is one of these characters that his origin is so amazing that I'll read every different version of it, and I don't care, and I love it. I don't care.
Yeah.
I own every different version of it. But Crisis on Infinite Earths was great. An amazing villain, Anti-Monitor. It's such an amazing, heart-stopping villain.
Who appears in the Green Lantern animated series in a really surprising way.
Yeah, really cool. I'm disappointed that series, and I didn't watch it when it was airing.
I didn't either.
I watched it on
How
Netflix.
dare both of you.
I know. And then I caught it later. I'm like, oh, this is
DJ, you're responsible
really
for the death of comic books and Green Lantern.
You're going to get so many tweets.
I like to imagine that takes place in the same DC animated universe because they mention when John Stewart shows. So, as Justice League.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. I just kind of think that so you're just like, oh, that's the reason why we don't see Hal Jordan on Earth, because he's out in space doing that stuff.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Great use of Guy Gardner. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move into...
It's DJ's number 3.
DJ's number 3.
It's well, you know what? It does kind of compete with Crisis on Infinite Earths, because this is 100%. No, this is 100% Jonathan Hickman specifically, but Marvel's attempt to do their own version of Crisis on Infinite Earths with the 2015 version of Secret Wars, where the whole Marvel universe is destroyed, the multiverse destroyed. Dr. Doom holds it together, makes a deal, holds it together, makes Battle World, which is just a kind of patchwork of a bunch of different multiverses, which I also think we have the Spider-Verse to thank for this.
Yeah, Spider-Verse I think leads right into this,
And you have some heroes and villains that are kind of refugees from the old universe that try and resurrect it. And of course they do, with some refugees. And one of the things that this event has that a lot of modern events don't, same artist all the way through.
Yes.
Took him a long time to get it done.
Unfortunately.
But Asad Ribic?
Asad Ribic, yeah, from Thor: God of Thunder.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous.
It's amazing.
It's a gorgeous book, and a lot of big ideas, and a lot of cool character moments with, you got Black Panther with the Infinity Gauntlet.
Doctor Strange gets a lot of good moments in this book, too.
And again, another theme, a great exploration of Doctor Doom, who also really just wants to be the good guy.
Yes.
And is also just not
I'm noticing a trend here, DJ.
Yeah. Just really wants to be a good guy and is really bad at it. Real jerk, too. Keeps Sue Storm as his wife.
Yeah.
Basically steals Reed Richards' life.
Steals Reed Richards' life.
I think that this event in particular has a lot of really good auxiliary stories, because Civil War has a lot of really crappy auxiliary tie-ins.
Yeah.
And Renew Your Vows came out of this, and Renew Your Vows is amazing.
And now it's an ongoing.
Yes, it is.
Yep. It's a great ongoing, actually. Yeah. All right, DJ, I want to ask you a question about this, because I think that as an overall Marvel event, I said this off mic, and I'm going to just say it on the air for our listeners. I think as an overall Marvel event, Secret Wars is not that great. Yeah. But as Secret Wars as the conclusion to Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four run is amazing. When you read it in that context, it really works. But as an overall Marvel event, I'm like, I don't know. How do you feel what do you think were the strengths and weaknesses of this event? Because some of the tie-ins were really strong, but some of the tie-ins were really not great. And then the delays, I think, kind of hurt the book.
I don't read tie-ins.
Okay.
No, just because there's so many, and usually they're bad. It's rare that I'm trying to think of the last time I read. Recently the Power Man and Iron Fist tie into Civil War II. I haven't read Civil War II, but their tie into it is really interesting. But normally tie-ins are just derail the books that they're on, or if they're their own miniseries.
Unless they're renumbered issues of the other things.
Yeah, I think the last time I really invested in tie-ins was Blackest Night, which there was some okay ones and then some that weren't.
But overall, Blackest Night I think had more good tie-ins than bad.
It's not on my list, but I really like Blackest Night.
Is Blackest Night on your list?
No, I don't like
Blackest
zombies.
Night is not on my list as well.
Yeah, but did we all enjoy it?
Yes.
So there you go. It's an honorary man. But I think that. So I didn't read the tie-ins. I thought this was a good. Cohesive story, it was telling, because it takes place on Battle World.
Yes,
it derailed all the books because they ended their line and relaunched it basically. But it wasn't. It was more of its own self-contained thing. For me, the downside was it's because it was trying to do so much. There's big in between issues. There's big time jumps where whole team dynamics change. And it's one of those like, what? It was 3 months before the last issue. You can't like. I feel like I missed something.
Can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
Because I've heard this argument said, and I think I definitely kind of feel this a little bit too. Would you have preferred? Would Secret Wars have gotten better or worse for you if after Secret Wars, the Marvel Universe rebooted itself from zero?
Hard
reboot. And because they kind of just did a soft reboot where nothing changed.
Yeah,
really.
except Miles Morales is around. Spider-Gwen's still on her own.
Yeah,
universe,
she's
right?
she's in Earth. I think it's 813, but I can't remember.
Yeah.
But like I remember reading the Ms. Marvel issue right before, and then the Ms. Marvel issue that picks up right after, and legit like nothing changes for her except she was like, I thought I'm battle rolled and now I'm back.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for the hard reboot.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to reboot something, part of me wishes New 52 had picked like, are we just kind of revamping everybody, but we're instead of the condensed 5 year
I 100% agree with you.
Hard, like we're starting over.
New 52, I think, should have been right from zero.
Yeah.
Like Dick Grayson is 12 years old.
Yeah.
And that's where, and no other Robin has existed. And I also think too, the New 52 should have started after Final Crisis.
Yeah.
Not Flashpoint.
Yes. Yeah.
Better lead in.
Final Crisis would have been a better lead in. Or if they didn't do a hard reboot, say, listen, it's the same timeline, but we're going to revamp all the costumes. We're going to revamp everybody's perspective.
Yeah. But I think,
so it's just more of a aesthetical, like this, more like kind of what Marvel did with the first Marvel now, where it's kind of a change of like our doctrine.
Yeah. Like
but
the first Marvel now had more of a change in the Marvel universe than the all different, all new,
ethnic Marvel
after
now.
Secret Wars.
Well, now with every year they change their like publishing their adjective and their publishing stratagem to where it's kind of like burned out. There's not really a lot of excitement for the new
Marvel Now 2.0.
Yeah.
Well, because it's interesting because I think now the prevailing theory is that it's interesting. I've talked to a lot of Marvel fans right now, and a lot of Marvel fans, myself included, are all like, yeah, they should just, I hope at San Diego Comic-Con next year, they're announcing a hard reboot because they need it.
Yeah. I mean, there's some books, Power Man Iron Fist is great.
There's some books that are great.
And it's benefiting from its history. Moon Knight's not as good as the Warren Ellis run, but is really good right now. I like Totally Awesome Hulk a lot with Amadeus Cho.
I'm trying to think of some other. I still like Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I think all the Spider books are pretty solid.
Silver Surfer is still good.
Spider-Man would definitely be their Batman if they did a hard reboot. Where it's like, hey, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Completely.
Don't worry about it.
Well, because they sort of already rebooted him with Brandon Day.
Lady Thor is really great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would probably save Lady Thor as well. They probably wouldn't let her get past that.
I think they'd save the Silk and Spider-Gwen as well.
I think you're right. I think Spider-Man, if they were to do a hard reboot, would be the one character that would like be basically untouched.
Yeah.
But like the X-Men are going to start from zero. Because,
God, they need to so bad.
They wouldn't do it now, because especially with now that they've got Tom Holland as Spider-Man. But if they did a hard reboot, I would basically roll Miles Morales into Peter Parker.
Yes,
and just have Peter Parker be mixed race and start back with him in high school, because
because I would always like, for me, like, is what I think that they're going to do in Spider-Man Homecoming. I would just make Miles Morales one of his contemporaries in high school. Yeah. Like he's like a Flash Thompson or like a Betty Brant or whatever, and he just. At the same accident, you find out late, maybe a couple years down the road, like he gets bit by a different spider in the same place. Yeah. But his powers take like a couple years to activate.
Yeah. Fun fact: the guy who is playing Flash Thompson in the upcoming Spider-Man movie is Latino.
Yeah.
Wow.
I guess I'm not a big fan of multiple. This comes from why I think Barry Allen should still be that. I don't want multiple Flashes running around. I want a Flash, a Kid Flash, maybe an Impulse. So
Spider-Man just kills you because there's like 6 spiders running around.
They're all in the right. Like at least with Silk,
they're all in
she's
New York.
got a different. Well, New York is a real crowded place. In the
All right, real quick. Spider-Man 2099, yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I love the 2099 books.
I was about to kick you out of here.
I love the 2099 books. I'd like to see them kind of. That'd be great to see.
I want him to go back to the future, though.
Is he still in the present?
He's still in present day Marvel Universe.
Pointless.
And it's like, no, go back to the future.
Yeah, go back to the future.
All right, cool. So any final thoughts on Secret Wars?
It was a beautiful book. My favorite modern Marvel event. I think it has some really cool ideas. It has really cool character moments. And with characters that don't usually get big moments in this, like Black Panther, like Mr. Fantastic. Usually it's Spider-Man and Wolverine and all that.
And now you can read it in trade, so I think it's a much better experience.
When you sit down with it all together, it actually reads pretty well.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool.
Your number 3, Jason.
Well, I remember, Ashley, I said earlier that my crossover is going to beat your crossover.
Yeah, you lied. I remember
in terms
that.
of being the ultimate crossover. My number 3 is DC versus Marvel.
Nice. I almost put this on my list. Now I'm glad I didn't.
1996, DC versus Marvel Comics. Actually, issues number 2 to 3 were titled Marvel Comics versus DC. They're written by Ron Mars and Peter David, with art by Dan Jurgens and Claudio Castellini. Basically, the storyline is two godly brothers who personify the DC and the Marvel universe become aware of each other's existence and challenge each other with a series of duels involving the universe's respective superheroes. The losing universe would have to cease to exist. Although the fight ends with sort of an apparent victory for Marvel, the new entity Access, who is a guy who can cross both universes, he infuses Batman and Captain America with fragments of the true universes, which actually causes the two universes to fuse together, leading to 12 issues in the middle of this event, leading to the Amalgam Universe, which introduced such amazing characters as Darkclaw, Super Soldier, Spider-Boy, and more. This had to be in my list because this is every comic book fan's dream storyline. Yep. DJ and I did a video about this on our YouTube channel where we actually talked about it. I remember this event. The reason why I listened to this, I can remember running to this small little video store in Erie, Kansas. It was the only place in town where I went to school that sold comic books, and running to see if the next issue of this had come out.
Yep.
You could vote in this event. Like they let people vote and stuff like that.
Yeah, and people voted wrong.
And they got some wrong. Like Storm beat Wonder Woman for some stupid reason.
In no universe.
Never.
But like the fact of this matter is that this event was like, again, an event that like should have never happened.
Yeah.
And
will never ever happen again.
It'll never.
I hope they do.
It'll never happen again until Disney decides to release things.
When the superhero bubble bursts and then no one's buying comics anymore.
Yeah, because DC apparently is all in. Like
really?
DC is like, we're fine. Let's do it. Let's have like DC apparently has been like for a long time, because Brian Michael Bendis has said for a long time that he's like, I want to do the Daredevil Batman crossover and I want to write it. And
That'd be
you can find interviews online where DC Comics is like, we're fine with it. Do it. Great. But it's Disney.
Oh, no surprise though.
Corporate overlords that are like, no,
never ever. Well, because before this, you had like Batman, Spider-Man crossovers. You had, I have a Silver Surfer, Green Lantern.
There's
crossover.
a Superman, Fantastic Four. That's actually quite great. But so this was like the ultimate dream. Like it was like Jubilee fell in love with Tim Drake Robin.
Yep.
Like
I'm not a huge Jubilee person, but I love that story.
Yeah.
I think it's so sweet.
And then the craziest thing about it is that they did the twist of Amalgam, which nobody saw coming. And then the fact of the matter is that
Amalgam's awesome.
Amalgam's amazing. I wish we still had Amalgam. I wish every year they released like $5.
I wish they would too.
And you still see people cosplaying Amalgam.
Well, it's because most of the Amalgam books are great.
Yeah.
They're so good and they're so filled with like Easter eggs, and you're sitting there the entire time.
Pages.
Yeah. And the fake letter pages were great. And then they also did the thing where they combined the creators' names.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there reading this book trying to figure out like all the Easter eggs, and it becomes amazing. It was so popular that they did a second Amalgam event the next year.
Yep.
Can you imagine the Amalgam cartoon?
Oh my God!
Somebody
everything.
get on that. Somebody do the animated intro for that.
Well, I've been hoping for a long time, because I think the only way we're going to see a Marvel versus DC versus Marvel come back is in Lego form, and I would love to see Lego DC versus Marvel, and then I want them to have a DLC, downloadable content of the Amalgam characters.
That's great.
If Lego made an Amalgam set, I would buy all of them.
I would buy. I don't like Lego, and I would buy every single one of them.
Yeah.
But DC versus Marvel is one of these events that. It's kind of like Crisis on Infinite Earths. It's the crossover that we never thought we'd ever see. And to be honest with you, like we talked about, we may never, ever see again. So there you go.
Yeah, hold on to your Amalgam books.
People will see, but we may never.
Yeah. All right, Ashley, what is your number 2?
My number 2 is probably my all-time favorite Marvel event, and I think it's most people's all-time favorite Marvel event, 2006's Civil War, the real one, without Sokovian Accords. The heroes are divided because the U.S. government passes the Superhuman Registration Act. Captain America is like, screw the government, in a move which feels really weird and out of character, and Iron Man is like, yes, the government, in a move that feels really weird and out of character. This major event was Peter Parker outed himself in one of the most hilarious 3-panel spreads where J. Jonah Jameson faints, and Steve Rogers' Captain America dies at the end of this event. Spoiler alert for an event that is a decade old. Civil War was the first event I remember reading as like a teenager. That was a line-wide crossover that felt like it was not. It is forced when you stop and think about it, because the wrong people are leading the wrong side. But it all felt really interesting. Everybody was facile and useful. It was weird that the X-Men were shunted off to the side, but at least they had a thoughtful reason for that. And then the impact of killing Captain America and what that did for the Marvel Universe is so powerful that I think I mean, Civil War is like the end all be all for me. Like, I just think it's so great.
This also, I wish Steve Rogers was still dead. I'm a big fan of Bucky Cap.
I love Bucky
Now, let me ask both your opinions. I'd love to hear this because the death of Captain America is not in the final issue of Civil War. It's in his own title, Captain America 25, which actually technically is not part of the event.
However, in a lot of the modern reprintings, they include that issue.
I actually think that was great because it didn't derail it because Ed Brubaker was doing really great work on Captain America at the time, and they didn't take and if I remember correctly, it fit pretty seamlessly in with what the story he was telling.
It did.
And I remember reading a lot of the interviews. Actually, they said that they did a big debate for a long time about where the death should happen, and then they finally decided that they were like, well, if we put it in Captain America 25, it kind of makes it like, they actually said this, they kind of makes it like Superman 75, where it becomes this issue. But I will say that that's my one negative against Civil War. Well, it's actually two. Is that the ending kind of like Captain America just kind of gives up, but the real ending of Civil War is Captain America's death.
It is.
And then also Civil War was the first event to me where I was like, yeah, the tie-ins are meaninless.
The tie-ins to the Civil War suck. They suck so hard, which is a bummer because they're still being reprinted. And when I used to work at a comic shop, I would I'd be like, don't buy this. Yeah. I will give you something else to read with these characters.
Yeah, please don't. Do you think that's true of events? Usually if the event is good, the tie-ins suck. And if the event is bad, the tie-ins are better.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Is that how that works?
I don't know. Let's compare it. Like, let's think about, Blackest Night. I think Blackest Night was like a 50-50.
It is a 50-50.
All right, Civil War, I think, is like, they were just all, I mean, I don't think the Axis tie-ins were that great.
But I think
Secret Wars is 50-50.
Secret Wars is like 50-50, yeah.
I think that those work better. Like, I really like the Flashpoint tie-ins because they were their own thing. They were filling out the own world. There's one book that I think the tie-ins were the best, but it's later on my list, so I'm going to say
you know what event I think has amazing tie-ins is Infinite Crisis. Because they did those 4 miniseries, and they're all good. They're all good.
We got the Secret Six, and we got the Shadow Pact.
The Rand-Thanagar War is in that.
Which I still prefer the name Shadow Pact over Justice League Dark, but I get why you need to sell books.
And then the OMAC project, which led to Checkmate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're all good.
No.
So there's the one. There's the one that's actually good. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. I think it really depends on how can your premise tie into these other characters. So
I also think it's whether or not you force the people writing the series to write the tie-ins, because I think,
or you give them a choice,
because I think sometimes if you're a writer on a series and then you have to force your way into whatever event, that can be really frustrating. And I think sometimes that's why the tie-ins suck.
Yeah.
And then
they're venting on the page.
Exactly. Yeah. And then sometimes they give the tie-ins to a completely other writer, maybe someone they're trying out, and they turn out to be really great because that person actually cares about what they're writing.
Yeah, and they're trying to be impressive so they can get the ongoing book after the other guy leaves.
Yeah.
All right, DJ, what is your number 2?
I think this is going to tie into my point. Final Crisis. All right, Final Crisis was big to me. I like Grant Morrison when he does events because he tries to do, like you're talking about with 1 million, he tries to do something bigger. And I remember reading interviews.
And this is where Darkseid took over the world. And
takes
Batman
over
dies.
the world. Yeah. This is where Batman dies.
Batman dies.
Yeah.
In Final Crisis.
Yeah, not in Batman R.I.P., which is also amazing.
Yes.
Which happened at the same time.
It's probably my favorite Batman story of all time. But Batman kills the god of evil with a bullet that had been fired from the future.
A bullet that's not a bullet.
The bullet's not a bullet. And it begins with the death of Orion. And this is also coming out of...
Countdown to Infinite Crisis, which is terrible.
Screw that. That doesn't matter.
Don't talk about it.
Yeah, it doesn't. But it ties in better with Grant Morrison does with his events. It ties into everything he's ever written. His Seven Soldiers stories where the new gods kind of exist in our plane. And it starts with the death of Orion and them trying to figure that out. And at the end expands into the whole multiverse.
Leads directly into multiversity.
Yeah, trying to survive. And this is, I think, the tie-ins for this. You made a good point with Infinite Crisis, but they did a similar thing where each tie-in is its own story.
Yeah.
Where you had one following the Spectre, which was really great, written by Greg Rucka.
The Superman Beyond tie-in, the 2 issues, is
really
great. And it's so good that they reprint it in the Final Crisis.
Because you kind of need it, because it sets up Vampire Superman.
But where else would you include that if you didn't put it in that collection?
I don't know.
Yeah, because it's only those 2 issues written by Grant Morrison. So
and it's a 3D comic book. I remember reading that 3D comic book. I ripped out that page with the 3D glasses and read it.
So it's like, I think, I was reading interviews with Grant Morrison, and it's at the time, and it's like, it's a big crazy crossover, but it's really about the idea of like screw you depression.
Yeah.
And it's and I think that's a beautiful idea to tell through superhero storytelling, because I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this. I do think superhero storytelling at its heart should be about positivity, because it's guys in bright tights punching the crap out of each other. Like, it should be, at the end of the day, superheroes should be about positivity, and this is kind of like the ultimate message of that. Art was inconsistent, shipping schedule was inconsistent, but I think the idea is presented there, and the idea of doing something more with an event of just, instead of just having all the characters together, makes this mean a lot to me.
Yeah, well, Final Crisis is one of those events that, like, it's not my list, but it's definitely towards the top, because it's, at the time, I know it got a lot of flack, but like, it's a great event, and it's a great story.
Yeah,
it's Jason, you said this before, and I'm going to steal it like it's my own idea. It's something that is ahead of its time, and I think people like it a lot more now with a little bit of distance between, and also because, again, you can read it compact, you can read it from start to finish. You're not at the whims of
we're pretty
creative
close
schedule.
to 10 years.
Yeah,
on it. Yeah,
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I think people like it better now. I think it is more well received. It's never gone out of print, so obviously there's a demand for it. But I think people are going to more and more look back fondly on it.
And also, you talk about that iconic image from Crisis of Infinite Earths with Superman and Supergirl. For me, there's no more iconic image than Superman with Batman's body.
Yeah.
I wish they print on the cover now.
Yeah, it just gets me every time, because for me, those two are the best of friends.
Yeah,
because honestly, like, who else could they connect to in the world other than the other greatest superhero of that world?
Well, it is in my and this is spoilers for a story that came out in 2008. It is in my headcanon that in that storyline, Batman actually dies. Like, the Batman is dead. Yeah. And that when Superman remakes the universe with the Miracle Machine, that's how Batman comes back to life.
Yeah.
Because he brought his best friend back to life.
Yeah.
That is my headcanon, even though...
No, it completely works, because they do... The way they explain that body is pretty convoluted.
It is very convoluted.
Who cares?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's a great moment, and it's so many cool ideas. I love the way Grant Morrison writes, where it's like, I'm going to have 15 big ideas in one word bubble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you're just along for life. Barry Allen comes back for better or worse.
Yeah.
So
right.
That's a big one for me.
Cool.
What is your number 2?
Well, my number 2 is also another big one for me, and it also features a big character. It is Onslaught from 1996. Now, Onslaught, I'm first to admit, is not a great storyline, but Onslaught was written as a sentient psychic entity. He was created by Professor Charles Xavier and Magneto. Basically, Professor X is evil. We learned that the villain, Onslaught, is the villain that Bishop had thought he'd come back in time to stop killing the X-Men. Yep. And the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and the Avengers joined forces to challenge Onslaught. And then, of course, they did the big thing where they realized that only the human characters can sacrifice themselves because other mutants make Onslaught more powerful, and they do that in a giant battle in Central Park. Now, the reason why I put this on my list is because this event was huge. And this event was teased for like 3 years in X-Men comic books. There was a build to this event, to the reveal of Onslaught, because Onslaught was talked about, but nobody saw him until like 96. And then the actual event is like, I think 35 issues, and it crosses over every single Marvel title at the time had a tie into Onslaught. Now, there are parts of this event that are good. There are parts of this event that are bad. But it is the only Marvel event in my entire lifetime where I actually thought the heroes were dead.
Yep.
I actually, because
really?
At the time,
when they get sucked into that when bubble.
When they get sucked into the Onslaught, the Avengers and the Fantastic Four, when they sacrifice themselves, it's actually a great moment when all the heroes, and then there's a great moment when Doctor Doom's there as well, and Iron Man grabs him and forces him to sacrifice himself as well. Of course, they did that so that all those characters would be in the Heroes Reborn universe. Yeah. But at the time, I didn't know about Heroes Reborn.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, what are they doing? They're killing the Fantastic Four. They're killing the Avengers. They're killing so like, it's only going to be like the mutants and Spider-Man. Yeah. Like, what are they doing?
And if they had Marvel, we'd be like, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So it is so massive. And then also the design of the villain Onslaught. His look is so amazing, and he is such an amazing villain that, like, they do these reveals in these issues where they're just like, oh, we're doing this thing, and then, like, they turn around a corner and there's Onslaught looking at you. Yeah. And, like, Onslaught has such a scary design. He has claws, and he's, like, 50 feet tall.
He's like Magneto on Super Steroids.
Yeah,
he's
totally.
Like, you remember Super Shredder in Ninja Turtles 2?
He's Super Shredder.
It's like if Magneto got his own Super Shredder.
Yeah. But so, like, when those characters would encounter Onslaught, it was generally, like, scary and and threatening. You were just like, oh crap, they are dead. All those characters are dead. And again, I think a lot of it might have had to do with like, it's just like, I don't think they actually plan that much of Onslaught. Like, I don't think they plan Onslaught to be the villain of Bishop's reveal, and I don't think they plan Onslaught to be evil Professor X. I think they just like stumbled into it. Yeah. But like, there were so many things that they stumbled into right in this event, and it just works out. And it really, like, I don't think they intended Onslaught to be this giant crossover. Yeah. Because the interesting thing about this event, where there's two events. There's like Onslaught versus the X-Men, and then the ends in Onslaught versus the Marvel Universe. And they're two difold covers, and they connect to each other. They have the image is the same.
Yeah, I have that last issue. I didn't follow anything, but I saw that last Onslaught issue. Yeah, I'm like, I got it.
You got to get it.
It's just everybody fighting. It wasn't shiny, but it was literally every character fighting this giant like Magneto guy.
Yeah, because Onslaught takes up the entire cover. Yeah.
And at that point, he lost the helmet, and he has that crazy skull face.
He has the skull face, and he gets even scarier. Like, because he gets like, his armor like complicates the more powerful, because he's a psionic being. Yeah. So like, the more like people fear him, the more powerful he gets. Like, and again, like, I thought that these heroes were dead, and he, to me, again, Marvel, for me, has not matched the level of threat of Onslaught in 20 years. Yeah. They have not found a villain to beat him.
Do you think that would be more shocking to people now if they looked like they killed the Avengers, now that the Avengers are so much more popular than they were then?
Because at the time, the Avengers weren't popular, which is the whole reason why they did the Heroes Reborn event.
Because that Onslaught was something that I was into. I thought about putting on this list, but I hadn't really looked at Heroes Reborn. I did not know that Marvel basically farmed out those heroes
to Image.
Oh yeah.
Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld.
Yep.
Yeah. It was the whole reason, because at the time, Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Hulk, and Avengers were not selling well. Nobody read them. But the idea that I think is that that worked. This whole event worked because I got into the Avengers and Fantastic Four because of Heroes Reborn. So like, it brought me as a person who thought the Fantastic Four and Avengers were lame. But again, it's a weird thing that like 20 years ago, nobody gave a damn about the Avengers.
Nobody gave a damn about the Avengers until Iron Man came out.
Exactly.
And now it's like the Marvel can kill off the X-Men a second time.
Yes.
And everybody's like, all right.
X-Men were like,
and the Fantastic Four.
And the Fantastic Four. Even more. Shove them and disperse the whole team. And everybody's like,
All right. So here we are. Number ones in all of our lists. Ashley, what is your number one comic book crossover and event?
My number one comic book crossover event comes from the fabulous year of 1999, the year of Y2K, and that robot song from Flight of the Conchords. It is No Man's Land, which is a Batman event that covered in detail a period in the lives of the residents of Gotham City, explaining all events from the time of isolation, post-earthquake, post-contagion, until the time of the reopening and beginning of the rebuilding of this series. It's basically Gotham City is declared not part of the U.S. anymore.
Well, they basically, because they had the earthquake and they had the disease.
It's such a disaster zone.
They feel that it would cost like trillions of dollars to repair it, and so they're just like, just blow it up.
So it's post-apocalyptic Batman, but it's still set in the Gotham City that you know from the 90s, which is the best Gotham and the best Bat family. We get to see Cassandra Cain here. Hunters get something to do, and a lot of the villains get highlighted as gang lords or eventually drug lords as they try to take over the city. It's the story that sort of inspired parts of The Dark Knight Rises, where they're writing the signs. Like, that is straight out of No Man's Land for me too. I really like when all the bad characters are sad and have to have feelings at each other, and No Man's Land is the peak of this. There's also a really sweet storyline between Nightwing and Oracle that gets me every time. So No Man's Land is just one of my favorite comics of all time.
No Man's Land also deserves mad shout out. It was one of the ones that barely almost made it on my list, because it was the storyline was year long, and they brought in creators that had never worked on Batman before, because at this time,
which I think made it so exciting.
At this time, Dan Jurgens had never worked on Batman before, and he got a 3-issue. And then the event is launched by Bob Gale, the screenwriter of Back to the Future.
Yes.
Which is insane. You're just like, and so there were so many writers that had never worked on Batman before, and they were like, well, what's your 3-part Batman story? Here, you can do it in No Man's Land.
We literally blew up the city. Go ape shit. Have
do
fun.
Whatever you want.
Because there's whatever you do is going to be fine.
Also, No Man's Land is the comic book event that introduces Harley Quinn into the mainstream DC universe.
True fact. Because she only appeared in the Batman Adventures before then.
Then
I wish we did more of that. I wish we did more where you took creators like, this would never happen, but like Brian Michael Bendis, write Batman.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Those Marvel exclusive contracts.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I've been saying for years that that DC needs to poach Brian as soon as his contract is done because you can't tell me that he doesn't want to write Batman. Everybody wants to write
and
Batman.
I think Brian could use a shakeup in the. I think he's done about everything you could possibly do with the Marvel Universe.
Well,
at this
also,
point.
and going back to your previous event, ever since Secret Wars, and you could tell that Jonathan Hickman loved Crisis on Infinite Earths because there's so much of it in Secret Wars.
He needs to be over at DC.
Well,
he
his
needs to
Avengers
write-
is basically Justice League.
Yes, he needs to write the Legion. Of
That'd be
superheroes.
great. He'd
Yes.
be really great for
He'd
that.
be perfect for
I'd
that
also
book.
like to see Rick Remender go over to DC. Most of those guys are no longer at Marvel. At least you should give them.
They all went over to Image. Yeah, give him
they
a
should give
call.
him a phone call.
Give him a call. All right, there you go. All right, DJ, what is your number one?
You know, I was feeling really good about it, and then I realized with the way my list was going, it might be a little bit repetitive. But I asked you when we were coming up, does Multiversity count? Because I thought about it. I
think it does.
And you're like, you think it does? Like, I love Multiversity. And here's one of the things I love. For one thing, it's a great take on all the characters. I remember the SOS is probably my favorite version of the Justice Society.
Nice.
The Secret Society of Superheroes, where you have Doc Fate and Anthro.
And they're very pulpy.
And I think that's why I love it so much. I love the pulp heroes. You also have a really cool take on the Watchmen, which is them as the original Charlton characters.
You know, the interesting thing is the reason why I'll give this to you is because I think Multiversity is a crossover event in its core because it does have all these DC characters that cross over, characters that we have seen before, characters we haven't seen before. But also it's interesting because it's not quite a crossover because it was just a miniseries.
It's
just a miniseries, and also it was a crossover of characters that aren't any you have
not
Superman,
they're
but
not
it's
being
not
published.
Yeah, it's not the main Superman. You have Captain Carrot. You have all these other characters, and it also starts to tie in, like Grant Morrison likes to do, to our reality, and plays on our reality. But it also has the beautiful map of the DC universe, this
awesome.
cosmic map that shows where the Speed Force is and everything, and it makes me want to cry every time I look at it because it takes almost 100 years of storytelling from hundreds of different creators and makes it look like it was all planned.
Yeah.
Yes, like it should have been there all
All
along.
the time, and you're like, how does this work?
And if you ever look at that map, there are so many little in jokes in there. Like the Bizarre World is actually a square.
Yeah.
The Captain Carrot universe has Captain Carrot's eyes in it.
Yep.
And then also you can look at it because there are certain planets that are on the dark side of the map, and there are certain planets that are on the light side of the map. And there's the ideas that those are the good Earths, those are the bad
Like
Earths.
where Apocalypse is.
And there are little lines between the ones because he did the thing where certain he's like, well, Earth 2 or Earth 3 always crosses over with Earth 1. So there are these little lines that go through
they're like ley lines.
Well, yeah, it's the idea is that so those are the Earths that can cross over with each other easier.
Yeah.
Where the bleed is not as thick.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just it's just great. It's just a great exploration of the things that make comics, not just DC, but superhero comics in particular, wonderful and lovely. Because again, it's also I would say it's a lot like Final Crisis, but better. It deals with a lot of the same themes of Final Crisis, but especially since each issue is kind of its own one-off.
It's a one-shot, yeah.
Yeah, one-shot. You also get the Fawcett City characters. You get the whole Shazam
Underworld.
family. Yep. Which is beautiful.
Yep.
So it does a lot with characters that nobody really gives a shit about.
And the year it came out, I gave it. I don't remember what year it came out, but a couple years ago, I gave it my favorite single issue of the year because Pax Romana, the story that is told backwards, and it features his version of the Charlton characters.
Yep.
I think is one of the best comic books ever written.
Yep. Yeah, it's a really cool. It makes you want a whole. I would really like to see a
series with each issue?
A series with each issue. And even if you did it set in the main DC universe, I would love to see those characters interact more. Because once they kind of got integrated, you don't see Vic Sage and Blue Beetle hang out.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see that again. I'd love to see those characters interact.
Well,
and
you're going to be very happy here in the next couple months because the Solicit's released and the Justice League Incarnate is showing up in Superman.
What?
Yeah.
And I'd love to see. I wish the SOS was the main Earth Prime's Justice Society.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Just because it works.
Yeah.
It just works as these are the characters that would have been around in the 30s. You've got Abin Sur's Green Lantern with devil horns and stuff.
Oh, he's so good.
It's that Pax Romana and the Multiverse Guide. Are some of my favorite comics that were ever released that year because you're like a guide and it's
it seems lame, but it's so cool.
You've got Kid Batman and then it's not Robot Batman. He's in armor, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're going through and just discovering the different aspects of the multiverse. But it's cool. All the Savannas joining together.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Well, that's a good event. Ashley's was a good event. But I have the best
As if.
comic book event and crossover. Mine came out in 2007, and I would give it the title of the perfect crossover. It is the Sinestro Corps War.
It's a good one.
Written by Jeff Johns, Dave Gibbons, drawn by Ivan Rice, Patrick Gleason, Ethan Van Sciver. Here's another reason why it's perfect. There's only 11 issues of it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Published between June and December of 2007. In addition to those 11 issues, there were 4 supplemental Tales of the Sinestro Corps one-shots. One-shots that you didn't need to read, but if you wanted to go, because they were about specific characters.
Yeah.
The story centered around the Green Lanterns of Earth and the rest of the Green Lantern Corps as they fight an interstellar war against the Sinestro Corps and an army of former Green Lanterns led by Sinestro. Now, this is the perfect crossover for me because it's a story where the stakes raise at every turn. This is it. From Superboy Prime showing up to the Anti-Monitor showing up in the very first issue for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah.
That was an event that was a page that made my jaw drop because the Anti-Monitor, we hadn't seen him.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have seen him.
Yeah.
He's in this event. And it also gets, the interesting thing about this event is it builds and builds and builds and builds. But the final battle is a fist fight between Kyle, Hal, and Sinestro on the rooftops of Coast City without their rings because they figure out a way to turn off all the rings.
Yeah.
So it becomes a fist fight. And also, this was the rebirth of the Coast City in the DC universe that hadn't been seen in the DC universe since 1992, The Death of Superman.
Yeah.
Now, some may argue, a lot of people argue, we talked about it earlier, Blackest Night. But for me, Blackest Night, it goes below this because Blackest Night kind of ballooned.
Yeah.
Like the zombies kind of took over. It kind of became too big, too unwieldy.
Yeah.
Whereas Sinestro Corps only being 11 issues, it's very focused.
It is.
It's so focused, and it is it is one of the best crossovers. It's so focused. It, in my opinion, is the greatest Green Lantern storyline of all time. And also, it still evolves the rest of the DC universe. But also the other thing about it, it only takes place in Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's just those 2 issues. They would just go back and forth, go back and forth, go back and forth. And the art is amazing. Sinestro Corps War, I think, is the best crossover ever. What do you guys think about Sinestro Corps War?
I like Sinestro Corps War. Green Lantern is a book that I enjoy in like fits and starts. So it would obviously it never made it onto my list, but I think it's important because it does a really great job at expanding the world. I mean, before there's some stuff that would happen before then as well, but expanding it just beyond like it's Green Lanterns. Like the idea of a Sinestro Corps is a really powerful idea, and then it's a really great continuation of him as an individual, his storyline, because Sinestro's a character who had nothing to do for most of his history, and then is suddenly elevated to the most important villain in that universe.
And it's an idea, too, where you're like, oh, the other colors can fight against the Green Lantern. It's one of those ideas that you're like, how did nobody think about this for 60 years? In 60 years, nobody thought about this. It's like Jeff Johns.
Multiple colorings. And honestly, I think it was better here because I think the idea of multiple cores actually was cooler than once we got them all.
Yes.
Because you talk about Blackest Night ballooning, I think that's part of that. Just the idea that you've got, because Sinestro had his yellow ring, now you have a whole core of that.
Yeah.
I think that payoff was really cool.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, so those are all our best crossovers. Guys, we're going to really quickly for this week, since this is a different episode, the recommended reading we do every week, which you can find at geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading, will actually be, our choices will be the number 1 choices of all of our lists. So that will be Sinestro Corps War, that'll be for you, Ashley.
No Man's Land.
And then for DJ, that would be
Multiversity.
So
now
Multiversity.
I'm really glad I picked Multiversity.
Yeah.
You guys are going to love it.
Yeah, so you go over there, go to geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. You can find a list of all of our episodes, and we will have these 3 books there with Amazon widgets that you can buy on Amazon, and a little bit of that comes back our way and keeps this Mind University running so we can do more lists and bring DJ in because, he's the man that ruined comics. And we had to bring him from comic book prison for this episode. So that's it for this lesson. Guys, if you go to patreon.com/Jawiin, you can hear our Geek History Lesson Extra podcast. And this week, we're going to be talking about some of the crossovers that we really don't like and some of the crossovers that almost made it on our list. I think we're going to have, and DJ will be there. So you want to hear more DJ, that's where you can find it. DJ, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
At the Mind University. Where can they find you if they want to hunt you down and blame you for destroying
ruining
comics?
comics? You can find me at DJ Talks Trash on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram. I try to put up, I'm starting to put up videos on Wednesdays now.
Whoa, Wednesdays.
Yeah, moving to Wednesdays at 12:30. And I also do my podcast with Sam Basher, Only Stupid Answers. If you want, we're on Spotify and iTunes and
everywhere you can listen.
Yeah, everywhere you can listen. And if you want more updates on Twitter, we are at Only Stupid Answers. Take out the vowels from stupid.
Nice.
Yeah.
You can download Geek History Lesson, guys, on iTunes, Stitcher, and more. And then remember, don't forget about the Geek History Lesson Extra podcast. And also, if you liked our list episode today, you want to suggest future episodes like that, they can do that in a multitude of places. Where can they do that, Ashley?
They can do that at geekhistorylesson.com and facebook.com/geekhistorylesson. There's a bunch of ways to contact us in both of those places.
Yes, and you can complain to us on Twitter. For me, at Jawiin, Jawiin, and for Ashley, at Ashley V. Robinson. I'm Jason Inman.
I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And Professor DJ,
Yes.
since you joined us for the class, will you please dismiss the class and our listeners and tell them where to go into the world? Just to give them a nice goodbye, a push out the door.
Hey, listen, guys, thank you for joining us. Go out there, be safe, hug somebody you love, hug somebody you don't love, and keep reading.